This is an Action News special presentation. Husky Mania, a whole new ball game. Brought to you by McDonald's.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Picozzi, and we welcome you live to our Channel 8 studios for Husky Mania, a whole new ball game. And from now until 8 o'clock, we will take a serious, in-depth look at the 1991-92 UConn basketball season. We will be joined live here in the studio by Coach Jim Calhoun and three of his players, Chris Smith, Rod Sellers, and Scott Burrell. We'll be chatting about the grade 8, the highly publicized UConn freshman class. We'll be taking some questions live from the live studio audience, and we'll also be taking your telephone calls for Coach Calhoun. We'll be giving you the telephone number a little bit later. The UConn cheerleaders are here. The UConn Husky is here. We have half the campus here, and we're here, and we hope to have a good time from now until 8 o'clock. But before we look ahead to the 1991-92 season, first Leah Secondo takes a look back at last season.
Thanks, Bob. It's pretty amazing the Huskies had the season they did, considering all the stumbling blocks which fell in their path last season. The biggest challenges were to let the dream season go to create their own identity, and of course, filling Tate George's sneakers at the guard position. Coach Calhoun wanted Chris Smith to move into the shooting guard role, but his maturity to run the offense was also needed. Added to that, the Huskies were without power forward Terrena Walker for 7 games, testing Coach's ability to put together the right mix early. En route to a 12-1 start, he experimented with Johnny Gwynn, Gilad Katz, Steve Peichel, and even Scott Burrell as possible backcourt leaders. During the run, it was obvious where Burrell should be. A 16-point performance in early January against Pitt was worthy of Big East Player of the Week honors. So for the remainder of the year, Peichel and Gwynn share the role, joining Smith, as UConn went on a roller coaster ride, losing 6 straight, tying a mark back in 1986. They were out-rebounded while shooting only 35%. Complicating matters, forward Maury Williams was declared academically ineligible.
This has been a very funny team to coach. I went back in the fall and said we're going to have to grind it out because we just weren't meshing, and here we are 16 games in the basketball season, and we just aren't meshing.
I mean, we're a good team. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We should be on top, and I guess we just got to prove it every time we play every other team the second time around.
But the Huskies pulled through the adversities, winning 6 of their last 8 to finish in a 3-way tie for 3rd in the Big East.
We want to win in every game, and I just want to come on, like I said, play hard. And it seemed like the intensity's there. The intensity's really there every game, but when it's a big game like say against the Georgetown, you really can see it more.
A lot of things came up real weird for us, but we were able to hang in there and do some good things down the stretch. And this was a big win for us.
The Huskies would not have the success of a year ago at the Big East tournament. Georgetown sent UConn packing in their first-round game, downing the Huskies 68-49. But the loss actually helped. With a full week's rest, UConn was powerful in the NCAA tournament, surprising a national television audience at the first round in Minneapolis, whipping Shaquille O'Neal and the LSU Tigers 79-62, and then Xavier 66-50.
Just tried to take it inside on them and, tease Scott, Smitty, John, all of them were passing me the ball. I was happy with them passing me the ball, and I was just trying to make my moves.
It was on to Pontiac for the Midwest Regional and a rematch with Duke. The eventual national champion was a bit too strong for UConn, winning it 81-67.
They play pressure defense, and they're not going to let up at all. So I mean, once you're down, I mean, it's a real hard battle to get back on top. So I mean, and they just held us off today during our run.
But this team, which finished 20-11, went further than many expected, leaving great promise for the 91-92 season. For Husky Mania, I'm Leah Secondo.
And joining us here in the studio, the coach of the UConn Huskies, Jim Calhoun. Jim, welcome aboard.
Oh, good to see you.
Now let's talk a little numbers. As Leah just mentioned, you won 20 games last year. You have 4 starters back. You have this incredible freshman class. I think the question that everybody wants to know is just who do you think your opponent will be in the NCAA final on April 6th in Minneapolis?
Yeah, we had to return to make a trip back to Minneapolis. I'm not quite so sure it's going to be in the Final Four, but I'm going back to the Final Four regardless, I think.
You've had, I think today, concluded Your 5th week of preseason practice. You started on October 15th. Your opening game is this Friday against the University of Hartford. So if you don't have it right by now, you only got 3 days to get it right. You feel your team is ready when the ball, or will be ready when the ball goes up Friday night at the Civic Center?
You don't really know. I mean, I think the worst game that any coach has to coach many times is the first game of the year, because you've had basically, 9 months to kind of wait for this to happen. But, I think we've worked really hard. I think that the veteran players that we have here tonight, certainly they will determine what and how good we are as a basketball team. And then the rookies, I think, will fill in, and they'll be the icing on the cake, as it were. But I think we're ready. I think that we'll work real hard, and we'll see what happens when we throw the ball up at 8 o'clock on Friday night.
Let's talk about the mixture. You have a lot of people back. You, of course, lost some key ingredients. Steve Peichel, who's on your coaching staff now, and John Gwynn and Lyman DePriest, and you lost Murray Williams in the middle of last season. But you do have 4 starters back, and you do have these 8 freshmen who we will talk about at length later. What about that mixture of experience and youth?
Well, I think there's some tremendously positive things about that. I think the positive simply is the guys, the 5 or 6 veterans we do have, they've been there before. They've won important games. They've stood at Madison Square Garden with a trophy and felt really good about themselves. I mean, they know what it is to win big basketball games. The young kids, they've got enthusiasm, and I think that's very, very important. They bring a lot of bewilderment sometimes, but they also bring sometimes some excitement that you don't really see with a veteran team. The blending of the two, I think, could make us into a very, very interesting basketball team. As the old guys kind of lead the young guys with their enthusiasm, we can get through some of the tougher times, I think, in the Big East because of that enthusiasm.
It's nice to have a lot of players, but you only have 200 minutes to divvy up 15 ways, over the course of a single ball game. Can you have too many good players? Is that possible? And is it possible that you have too many good players and you won't be able to keep them happy?
No, never. There's no way you can have too many good basketball players unless you have too many of the same kind of basketball players. For example, if we had 4 or 5, 6, 10 kids who could all really play, you might have a problem. We in turn think we have a good mixture. We have a great mixture, as you just mentioned, of young and old. I think some of the kids, Kevin Ollie, for example, understands just what a great player Chris Smith is, and I think psychologically he'll be an important player for us, but he understands maybe his importance will be a lot this year, but more importantly in the future. So I don't think we have too many players. I don't know many teams that actually do have too many good players.
Well, we're going to meet 3 of those players in just a moment. Chris Smith and Rod Sellers and Scott Burrell are here. And a little bit later in the program, we will be taking your phone calls for Coach Calhoun, and the phone number to call if you want to ask the coach a question is 784-8888. There it is on your screen, 784-8888. But we will meet 3 of the returning lettermen for the UConn Huskies when Husky Mania continues after these messages. Back to Husky Mania, it's a whole new ball game. We've already met Coach Jim Calhoun. Now let's meet 3 of his players who are joining us in the studio tonight. The first one is a 6'2" senior from Colby Cathedral High School in Bridgeport. He is a first-team preseason All-Big East Conference selection. He enters his senior year as the 7th leading scorer in UConn history and needs only 483 points to become the leading scorer in Huskies history. Please welcome number 13, Chris Smith. Next is a 6 foot 9 1/2 inch senior from Wilson High School in Florence, South Carolina. He has started 66 of UConn's 68 games in the last 2 years, played in all 99 games during his 3 years, and as a junior he led UConn in rebounding with 8 per game, also averaged 11.7 points per game. Number 22, Rod Sellers. And next is a 6'7" junior from Hamden High School, a third-team All-Big East selection as a sophomore last year, a preseason second-team All-Big East choice this year. In only 2 years, he's already second in UConn career steals. Needs only 30 more to break the UConn career record. Number 24, Scott Burrell. Fellas, first of all, welcome to the program. And Smitty, let's begin with you. Now, you're going to at least start, unless Coach changes his mind between now and Friday night, as the starting point guard on Friday night against the University of Hartford. But you also figure to see some playing time as the shooting guard, something that you've done, you know, throughout your first 3 years at UConn. How difficult is it going to be for you to handle that dual role, and knowing that from time to time throughout the year you're going to be asked to switch and, you know, change your cap from point guard to shooting guard and back to point guard within the same game?
Well, I've gotten used to it. Last year I played the type of same offense that we're going to play this year. Play the 2 guard sometimes and play the 1 guard sometimes. And so as I played it last year, I got more and more used to it. So this year in the preseason I've been playing a lot of 1 guard, so I'm pretty used to that, and I know how to play the 2 guard pretty well, so that's going to be pretty easy.
Jim, why would you want Chris to play both roles as opposed to maybe just having Chris and Kevin Ollie, who you recruited as a point guard, handle the 1 spot? And whomever you're going to start on Friday night, whether it be Brian Fair and Richie Ashby to, you know, the 2 spot.
Well, you know, I think that the point guard has his hands on the ball the most. Chris is our best player, therefore I want our best player to have his hands on the ball the most. It's really that simple, and I think Chris's skills have lent himself, as he's evolved as a player, to become as good a player and good as ball handler as I've ever been involved with. And I feel there's no reason at all why he couldn't be a tremendous point guard. I really believe that because he's a tremendous basketball player.
Rod Sellers is also with us. Rod, UConn has a lot of things this year, but one thing that you don't have a lot of is you don't have a lot of size. So you and your fellow senior Danny Cerulik are going to be called upon to be to do the bulk of the rebounding and also to provide some inside scoring. Can you tell us how you see your role on this year's team? And I'm sure you recognize that they're going to be relying heavily on you to do the work inside.
Well, since I've gotten here, my role has gotten bigger each year, you know, and this year it hasn't changed. I think it'll get a little bigger, more rebounding, possibly more scoring. And Dan and Scott and Terreno also could help on the rebounding end, so I think we'll do pretty well.
Jim, about Rod, I mean, you got a lot of people in the backcourt, you got a lot of forwards. You don't have a lot of centers, though, so you need a big year from him, or else it could all collapse.
Yeah, most importantly, we don't have a lot of players like Rod, and I don't think many people do. I think he's really kind of an indispensable basketball player for us in the sense that he is, at many times, our inside offense, and he's the guy we're going to go to inside the paint. He's the guy that has to do all the dirty work and play against the Derek Colemans, the Alonzo Monans, and Matumbos. And, you know, I think that really, quite frankly, that probably in the past 3 years, he probably has been the most unassuming, very good basketball player, maybe in our entire conference.
Scott Burrell is with us as well, and Scott, your role could change also this year. Coach mentioned the other day, I presume he mentioned it to you, but he can see from time to time this year, particularly when you're up against an opponent that has a lot of size, that he will use you as a shooting guard, which is a very different role than the one you've filled so far. How do you feel about that?
I enjoy it. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing as a 3-man, so I'm used to it. It's a more exciting position, I think. I mean, playing up in the front of the zone, it's more of a challenge to get on our shooters and not let them get an open shot.
Jim, what's your philosophy? You got a lot of guards. You're not suffering from a lack of numbers at the guard. Why would you want to move Scott out of his forward spot to the backcourt?
A number of reasons, Bob, really. You know, first thing, I think it allows us to be a much bigger basketball team since we don't have real two big kids in size, Rod being the biggest at 6'9". That's not real big in our league. I think it makes us team-wise big. We'll probably start a team Friday night of 2 6'9" kids, 2 6'7" kids, and Smitty at 6'3". So it gives us good team size, number one. Secondly, I think it gives us a terrific defensive player to go along with Chris, who himself is a great defensive player, in the backcourt. Third, I think it's going to help our press. I think Scott at the front end of our press is almost a lethal weapon in many ways. And fourth, he can play guard as long as he wants, as long as he makes jump shots. I don't think I don't find any pressure on that whatsoever. I told Scott, you can be a 2-guard the rest of your career as long as you make jump shots. And I think it's a pretty good deal.
Well, like the one he rattled in at the Civic Center against Pitt last year. We saw that in Leah's report, right?
That was really pretty.
Had it all the way.
That was really pretty. I think it was a thing that all shooting coaches want to show their players. This is how to shoot a basketball. About that far from the rim.
Just touch every part of the rim a couple times on the way down. Smitty, we mentioned earlier that you are in position to establish some pretty prestigious records. before you graduate next May, not the least of which is you have an excellent chance of passing Tony Hansen as the leading scorer in school history. You have an excellent chance of becoming UConn's first 2,000-point scorer. And you have an excellent chance of being selected in the first or second round of the NBA draft next year, particularly the first round, I would think. What are your thoughts about all of those personal accomplishments that may come your way if you have a good senior year and will be an outgrowth of team success?
Well, I really can't think about that much right now. I think I just have to go out there and play every game and play as a team person. I think our team has been successful because we play team-oriented basketball. And I think we have to keep it that way. I just can't let my personal things get in the way of our team. And I think for the team to win, then everything can take its place for me. So.
When you were a senior in high school and you signed on the dotted line, and you, of course, are a Connecticut youngster, so you're familiar with the people who have played at UConn before. Did you ever dream that by the time you graduated, Chris Smith would be the leading scorer in UConn history?
Oh, yeah, I always dreamt that. I mean, I'm very confident in myself, and I think that shows in my play. And that's just something that I love to do. I love to go out of UConn history as the best player that ever played at UConn, the leading scorer. I like to do it all. So, if I can do it all, I will.
Jim, I know as a coach, your first priority is to produce the best basketball team you have, but also you like your kids to have a chance to go on professionally. Is it tough, especially entering Chris's senior year, to try to balance that, to maybe make him the most attractive to an NBA team while at the same time not sacrificing team goals?
No, I don't think so at all. I think my job and our job as coaches, our staff, is to make our team the best possible and give Chris the best opportunity to develop fully as a player. You know, his confidence level should be high. You don't become the kind of player that Chris Smith is, and I don't think at any point in time that Chris has ever sacrificed, you know, our team for himself, and I believe that very strongly. So it's a dual role as a coach. I think we have to handle it. You know, my job is to develop Chris to the fullest, so we'll be the best team possible, and then everybody comes out winners.
Rod, I don't know if you've given this much thought, but this is the last time around for you. Have you thought about what it's going to be like, you know, when you put the sneakers and the basketball away and you're not going to see this guy to your left at practice every day? You've gone through 3 years and about to go through your 4th year with him and Danny Cerulik. You want to go out on top, I know.
I definitely want to go out on top, and hopefully if the team have a good year and I have a good year personally, maybe I could see Smitty next year somewhere.
But it's been a joy to play with him.
It's been great. You know, ever since coming in my freshman year, me and Smitty have been together, me, Smitty, and Dan, and, you know, it's been fun to play with these guys. And Scotty and Torreno came in the next year. You know, it's been great playing with them.
Scotty, of course, you, besides basketball, have some other outside interests. You, of course, are under contract with the Toronto Blue Jays, and you spent parts of the last 2 summers in their minor league system. You were a first-round draft choice as a pitcher, and most people expect you to be a major league pitcher someday. Can you tell us, are you going to be back for your senior year to play basketball at UConn?
Yeah, I'll definitely be back. I mean, having a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm getting education, having fun playing basketball, so I'll definitely be back for my 4th year.
You want to give him a piece of paper so to sign that? That's a verbal commitment.
All we're doing is saving this tape. That's the only thing I want to make sure. By the way, Rod didn't say he was going to miss coach. I noticed that wasn't thrown in there. I was a little nervous. But you know, I think all 3 of these guys are the heart and soul of what we do. A lot's been made of the freshmen. I know you're going to talk about that later. But very simply, these are the heart and soul, along with Danny and Torreno, of what's going to happen for UConn basketball. I want to make that statement emphatically, because many times you hear about what's going to happen, and that's all projection. These are the guys who have made it happen thus far.
Okay. Chris Smith, Rod Sellers, Scott Burrell, thank you for joining us. Good luck. Still to come on Husky Mania, your chance to call up at 784-8888 and ask Jim Calhoun your question. We'll also be taking some questions from our live studio audience. Please stay with us. Thanks, guys. A whole new ball game. I'm Bob Picozzi, and this is going to be an interesting segment, or at least we hope it's going to be interesting. I'm here in the midst of our live studio audience, and we're going to be taking some questions for Jim Calhoun from the members of our audience. We're also going to take questions for Jim from you, the viewers at home, and if you would like to ask Jim Calhoun a question, please call 784-8888. That's 784-8888. And the first question we're going to take is on the telephone, and it is from, I believe, John from New London. Go ahead, John.
How you doing, Jim?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I was wondering, how do you think the freshmen will compete if you happen to make it to the Final Four, you know, seeing that they are just freshmen?
Well, you know, obviously we're fortunate enough to make it to the Final Four. You would have to assume that the freshmen by that time would be very, very solid basketball players because we've won an awful lot of basketball games. I'm more concerned with University of Hartford on Friday night and see how the freshmen perform there, and I'm too nervous about that. But your question is hopefully a long-range kind of thing, and hopefully I'm going to be answering that later in March sometime. But right now, we're much more concerned how the freshmen adjust during the early part of the season.
Okay, John from New London, thank you very much for your question. Again, that telephone number is 784-8888. We now have a question from our viewing audience, and I believe this is Bob from Bloomfield. What's your question, Bob?
The University of Connecticut has been chosen to play next year in the Hall of Fame game in Springfield against Purdue, and I was wondering what Coach Calhoun's view is as to what effect that has in the overall program, how big that is in developing future players and the program itself.
Well, you know, I think coming to the Hall of Fame basketball tournament, we're the first New England school selected, and there's 17 Division I schools in New England. I think it's a tremendous tribute to our program, certainly to our fans, to everybody involved with UConn. To us, it's kind of a benchmark. It's something that says that you have now reached a certain status. If you look down the names of the North Carolinas, the Duke, the Villanovas, the NC States, people who have been there before, Indiana, UCLA this year, I think that tells you something that people feel we are one of the programs in the country. Not maybe 2, 3, 4, but one of the hopefully dominating programs in the 90s are going to be, hopefully. But I think, once again, I think it's a nice tribute to what we've done thus far, and hopefully a projection maybe what we can possibly do in the future. So I think consider it a great comment to our university, to our basketball program, just generally speaking to Connecticut basketball. You're welcome.
All right, let's go back to the phones, and we have a call from Ron from Stratford. Go ahead, Ron. Ron, can you hear us? All right, let's switch to Bill from West Haven. Do you have a question for Jim Calhoun, Bill?
Yes, Coach Calhoun. I'd like to ask you about the Big East ACC shootout. They say that the fans love it, but the coaches hate it. I was wondering what you feel about this year's contest and what you feel about this type of interconference competition in general.
Well, in general, I really like it. I mean, I think it's good for us because all of us are chicken at heart and wouldn't play really strong teams early part of our schedule, and it forces us to play good, solid basketball teams, particularly in December. Most of us would like to do two things in December, really avoid injuries and get a lot of wins. And this doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. The injury part hopefully takes care of itself. So I like it. I voted to continue it. Most of the coaches in the league don't want to have anybody dictate their schedule and decide not to do it, and therefore we're not going to continue to have it. But playing Wake Forest for us is, I think, a healthy situation. I think it's going to find out a lot more about our basketball team by playing a team like Wake Forest in December.
Jim, to follow that up, that means you think University of Hartford is an automatic win, right?
No, I don't. I think matter of fact, the tougher games we play, in my opinion, are the in-state rivals, because I think to them it's a special game, and I really think it has a lot of significance. So I've never met an easy basketball game. If you see me on the sidelines, you probably can attest that too.
Okay, we have Marty from Southport with us. Marty.
Coach, when you're out there recruiting players for the program, what aspects of the program do you stress the most and try to bring them into the campus?
Yeah, you know, I'm like John Kennedy. When I first came here, I heard all the reasons why, and of course I thought, why not? We've got a state with some of the best high school bases of high school talent in America. We have a terrific alumni base, one of the best 15 state universities in America, a great location. There's so many things that I think you can sell about Connecticut. There aren't many places in America where we're going to get the kind of interest, for example, have an hour pregame show. I don't think there's anybody else in the Big East that has what we have. So I just think between academics, location, tradition, we have a great tradition. Most people don't realize we've been in the NCAA tournament 18 times. We have a terrific tradition to sell, many things to sell in the state of Connecticut and certainly at the University of Connecticut. There are so many aspects of the program that I find very comfortable selling and very believable to sell.
Okay, let's go back to the phones. We have Wally from Milford. Wally?
I would like to know if Coach Calhoun feels that this year's team is good, if not better than last year's team. And I would also like to know if I could get the team's autograph.
Well, the team's autograph will definitely take care of it. All you have to do is write Bob Bacozzi, Channel 8. He'll take care of that for you. Secondly, do I think the team's going to be as good as last year? I think it has potential to be a very, very good basketball team. You know, last year we ended up 300 Division I basketball programs being 16th in the country when it was all said and done, so that's pretty good. And I think that I would probably make a pact somewhere along the line. If we can keep being in that top 15 every year, that I would probably sign it. So I think that we have an opportunity to be at least as good as last year's team, but there are no guarantees. Last year's team achieved a lot. This year's team can achieve a lot, and that's a big can.
Okay, we have time to squeeze in one more question from the audience, and we have Phyllis from Westport. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I'd like to ask the coach, how do you see the race in the Big East shaping up this season?
Well, you know, right now I think I take the two most experienced teams, being St. John's and being Seton Hall, both with a great many players back. I think the most difficult thing this year, and I can say this rather quickly, last year we were 5 seconds away from first place. If we had beaten Syracuse twice, we lost them by a total of 5 seconds. We would have won 11, they would have won 10. We in turn were 6 seconds away from 7th place. We could have lost to Villanova, certainly, and we certainly could have lost to Seton Hall. We won 1 second to go. So last year we were separated between first and second by about a total of 12 seconds. Therefore, I think with the emergence of BC, who I think is going to be one of the comers in the league, I think the league will be even tougher to predict. But I would say right now, St. John's and Seton Hall will be the two best teams.
Okay, that does it for the calls and the questions for Jim for this segment. We're going to be taking phone calls a bit later on in the program. Again, the phone number is 784-8888. We'll also have an opportunity to take some more questions from our audience. Still to come on Husky Mania, we will take a look at the Great Eight. Not this TV station, but the freshman class. So please stay with us. We've already met 3 of the upperclassmen at UConn, and there are 8 other young men that I think you'd like to know about. They are members of certainly the most ballyhooed freshman class in UConn history, and Ken Strayhorn takes a look at the class of 1995.
The class of freshmen that entered UConn this fall is by far the best in school history. They join a group of veterans with skill and experience. Husky fans know to expect nothing but the best from their veterans. It's the freshmen they know will make the difference in a good year or a great season. UConn opened the basketball season with 16 players on the initial roster. From those, 8 were freshmen. Despite that, the Huskies debuted and the AP College basketball poll ranked 15th. That means there's a lot of people out there with a lot of respect for the Husky freshmen. In getting to know the first-year players at UConn, let's start in alphabetical order with Richie Ashmead. A 6'2.5" guard from Queens Village, New York, he was rated among the top 75 high school players in the country his senior year. He brings an average of 19 points and 6 assists per game to Storrs.
I always try to work as hard as I can on defense. In offense, I try to let my offense come to me. I don't really try to rush my shots. I just try to do the right things on the court.
Another guard, Brian Fair, comes to Storrs from Phoenix, Arizona. The Arizona High School Player of the Year was rated one of the top 50 recruits in the country last year. Fair is considered an outstanding athlete with three-point shooting range.
My strength is outside shooting. I can shoot the ball from pretty far out, and I think that's my strength so far.
Defensively?
Defensively, I'm real athletic, so I can help on things, but I still need to try to play with the same intensity throughout the whole game.
The High School Player of the Year in the state of Florida was UConn freshman Rudy Johnson. Rated among the top 100 prospects in the nation, he has tremendous ability to leap. A small forward, Johnson, and guard Jeff Calhoun have both battled early injuries. Calhoun is out for the year as a redshirt, but Rudy Johnson should be back in full stride very soon.
Right now, I'm just trying to, get my head together and get therapy in and work my way back on the court and try to get some playing time.
It's been tough so far, but, I'm just trying to do whatever I can to get back in shape and then eventually start practicing with the team later this year.
A fleet-footed forward from Federal Way, Washington, Donnie Marshall adds an extra dimension to this UConn team. Fast and strong, he should fit in well in the Jim Calhoun up-tempo game. Marshall averaged 26 points per game in his senior year of high school. He's optimistic about what's to come in his career as a Husky.
And the level of play, the competitiveness, you know, just throughout the whole team, you know, it's 100% tough. That's all it is. That's all you can say about it. You know, this is the Big East, Connecticut Huskies. I don't think there's any better program in the country.
When the season ended last year, UConn found themselves without a quick forward. In comes Donyell Marshall. Already named the Newcomer of the Year in the Big East, he was the Pennsylvania High School Player of the Year last year. He was rated by Basketball Times among the top 10 best prep players in the country 1 year ago.
The coach recruited me to come here and play right away. And, you know, I came here, I felt that if he has confidence in me, then that's how I'll do all right.
UConn basketball fans will probably see a lot from guard Kevin Ollie this year. From Crenshaw High School in Los Angeles, he follows names like Marcus Johnson and Darryl Strawberry from that school. A quick, outstanding, penetrating guard, he could fill a hole for UConn. He's a confident player, and that confidence comes from home.
You got to have a strong mind, and plus I have my mother back there where I can just dial a number and call her, and then she can always lift me up after bad practice, after a bad game, because she's a great woman, and she lifts me up and just brings my spirit and keep me motivated.
The big man of the group is also alphabetically the last. Natambu Willingham is affectionately known as Boo to the team. A talented big man, he's being called on to provide some depth in the middle. Boo averaged 17 points and 13 rebounds per game in high school while leading his team to a 26-4 record his senior year.
I would just like to come in and contribute whatever I can, you know. I know I won't be a sudden impact right now, you know, my first year, but I just want to do whatever coach wants me to do. And, you know, most of the time that's just playing hard and doing the little things that counts.
Add these 8 to players like Chris Smith, Rod Sellers, and Torino Walker, and the possibility for good times are ahead.
And, of course, the 8th member of that class is your son, Jeff, who is a medical redshirt this year because of the shoulder. How's his shoulder coming along?
Well, it's going along good, but, you know, obviously he won't be able to practice. Having that type of surgery, 4-hour surgery, he won't be able to practice until probably at least late January. So the year's going to be a wash in one way, but I think it's a year in which he can work very hard academically, secondly work very hard to get his body as strong as it possibly can be.
You know, the basketball fans of Connecticut are instant critics, and they don't want to wait around till January to give their review when they can do it like 5 minutes into opening night. Do you feel any pressure at all bringing in this highly publicized group of 8 people, which is, I mean, 8 is an unusually large number to bring into a program that already is at the level of UConn?
Well, you know, it's a large number, but they're freshman basketball players, no more, no less. I mean, what's been made of them has been made by other people, not by me, and not by our players. I mean, my respect first starts out with my veteran players, Scotty, Torino, Rod, Smitty, Danny, and so on. So those are the people we're going to build upon. The young kids are going to be very, very good players. They're the future to our program, but that's all they are. So as far as pressure, the only pressure I feel is the same pressure I feel every year, and that's to be the best program we can possibly be.
You, in these 8 people, you have some people who have various skills, and collectively they can provide a lot of answers for you.
Well, that's, I think, the thing is they bring to us. They bring to us some good backcourt play. Richie's a terrific defender. Kevin can really distribute the ball from the point guard. Brian Freer is an exceptional shooter, as good as shooters we've brought on campus, particularly as a freshman. Donyell could be the whole package someday. A lot of work to do, a lot of strengthening to do, but could be a terrific player. Rudy Johnson, who I think is going to be very good, has been hurt, but another quick, fine athlete. Donnie Marshall, I think, has a chance to be a very good, interesting basketball player. 6'6", 220, can really do an awful lot of different things. Just has got to learn how to play within our system, play within what we're doing. And obviously, Boo Willingham at 6'10", 235, he just got to have patience to work hard enough so that by the time Rod and Danny leave, that he can step in and do the kind of job I think he's capable of doing.
And the fans are going to have to be patient, too, because you can probably count on one hand the number of freshmen in the history of college basketball who can step right onto the court and play at a level without making, you know, the mistakes you would expect an 18-year-old kid to make.
There's only the Hall of Famers who've ever done that, and even those guys many times have struggled to really be tremendous impact players. Very unusual for a freshman to make it really happen in the Big East. You know, I think our fans have always tremendously patient. They always wait. You know, even during the games, I can tell. You know, we're down 10 at halftime. They usually give us a standing ovation. It's an incredible thing. No, but I honestly mean it. I mean, fans are fans, and even coaches. We're the same way. You want these kids to be good, quick, instantaneously, but you know in your heart and soul, just as our fans know, it's not going to happen. They will be the difference, maybe, between us being a very good team and an exceptional team. They could be the difference between us being a good team and a very good team, but they won't be what really makes it happen.
And they'll probably be a lot better in February than they are in November.
I'll be a lot older by then, too.
All righty, if you'd like to ask Coach Calhoun a question, the phone number again is 784-8888. That's 784-8888. When we come back, some more questions from the viewing audience and from our live studio audience. Please stay with us. Husky Mania, it's a whole new ball game, and in this segment, once again, we are going to be taking your calls from the viewing audience for Jim Calhoun, and also take a few calls from members of our live studio audience. The telephone number again is 784-8888, 784-8888, and let's begin by taking a call from Bill from Middletown. Bill, go ahead.
Coach Calhoun, I see that you will be playing the University of Texas on December 14th. They're coached by ex-UConn player Tom Penders from the 60s, I guess. Isn't that a game you're concerned about prior to the start of the Big East schedule? And will you be playing the Longhorns up here in 92-93?
Well, the game was arranged by Jeff Hathaway, our associate athletic director, so I have nothing to do with it. No, you know, quite honestly, Tommy Penders, I've known Tommy since back at Tufts days, matter of fact, when he was coach at Tufts. I was at Northeastern, and we've actually been friends for almost 20 years. I think Texas is a good game for us. I really do. I think that to go to Texas early in the season with a young group of kids, I think a lot of times the unifying experience of being away as a team together, I think is a real positive thing. So, yeah, it's a dangerous game, but, you know, every game you play is dangerous. Last year, everybody said, well, you got an early part of your schedule is not that difficult. Well, I was in the New Haven Coliseum against Yale and thought that game was pretty dangerous, too. So every time they throw it up and you play 40 minutes, it's dangerous. And Texas, I think, is for us a dangerous game, as they all are, but nevertheless, I think it's a good game for our basketball team.
Jim, of course, Tommy Penders played baseball and basketball at UConn, so you figure he would leave no stone unturned. He doesn't want to embarrass you. So he'll probably go easy on UConn, don't you think, on the alma mater? Isn't that the way it works?
I think everybody who knows Tommy Penders knows that we're in for a war that night, and I think for Tommy it'd be really special to beat you know, his alma mater.
Okay, let's take a call from a member of our audience. You are Al from Brantford?
Correct.
Go ahead, Al.
Actually, two questions. Jim, firstly, what were your thoughts on making Scotty the shooting guard instead of Danielle Marshall? And secondly, any thoughts about taking Rudy Johnson and redshirting him for the year?
Well, first thing, you know, Scotty's much more advanced ball handling wise than Danielle. Secondly, he's much stronger and a much better defensive player. So just for the purposes of the reason that I moved Scotty, I wouldn't move Danielle. Danielle's almost 6'9", and he's the tallest player on our team. He has the longest arms, and actually, when stretched out, he actually is taller than Danny Srulik at 7 foot. So we'd like to try to utilize him inside. He's not ready to play out on the floor yet. Scotty certainly is. As far as Rudy goes, you know, right now we plan to use him. We think that Rudy, if he stays healthy, will be a very, very important part of our basketball program. So for our purposes, we really believe it's important that Rudy gets healthy. There's no guarantees, but he's one of the better athletes on our team, and at this point we have no plans to redshirt him. If he can't come back, obviously we've got to consider that.
Okay, let's take a call from our viewing audience. I believe this is Florence from West Hartford. Go ahead, Florence.
Hello?
Yes, Coach Calhoun is right here.
Hi, Coach. How are you?
Good, Florence.
Good. I just wanted to tell you, Coach, as a mom of 3 beautiful children who are avid Husky fans along with myself, we want to thank you so much for all the happiness and joy that you've brought to us, both you and your young men. In our times of bad times, negatives, you brought positives to us, and we just want to say thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. You know, it's really appreciated. You know, I think one of the special things about coaching basketball at Connecticut is the fans, and I've always said that. I think sometimes when things get a little tough and you lose a game or things don't happen right off the bat, I think one of the things between Mail and obviously nice comments like you had make it special to coach here, and certainly make it very, very special to play here. And I think it's one of the things that it makes Connecticut very, very special and makes us very proud to represent the university and to be able to bring that type of spirit and feeling amongst the people of Connecticut.
Jim, I thought you said one of the special things about coaching at UConn was the media, not the fans. Isn't that what you said at the luncheon today?
Well, they're going to be watching tonight. They know how I feel about them.
Make what you want of that.
I said that in a positive nature, just how I feel about them.
Largest press corps in the country. A lot of people don't realize that, but...
I do. I realize the largest press corps.
There are more members of the media who cover UConn basketball on a game-in, game-out basis than any other college basketball program in the country. That's your fault, D-Row. He's back here. He started the whole thing. Burr Carlson of Manchester is here for a question for you, Jim. Go ahead, Burr.
Jim, your half-court defense is exciting and very productive for you for your offense. You've expressed an opinion in the papers about your half-court offense. Could you discuss that with us in relation to your new players plus your seasoned veterans?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to look at a weakness over 5 years in which we've won 89 basketball, 4 years and 89 basketball games, I would have to say simply, we feel we haven't made it score enough off the half-court set. Obviously, when we press and we get steals and do those kind of things, we're terrific. But we've got bogged down on the half-court set, and you know, like every team, you can't be all things to all people, and that's the thing that concerns me the most. I think this particular team has potential. Once again, I keep using that word because we haven't done it yet, to be a very explosive team. And I think if we continue to work very hard by putting a little more motion principles, a little more freelance principles, we feel we can get the most out of our kids offensively. I really think some of the guys that we heard from tonight, and certainly some of the younger kids back home, this team has potential to be probably as good an offensive team as we've probably had here in 5 years.
Okay, let's go back to the phone calls, and this next person is Michael from North Haven. Go ahead, Michael. Got a question for Coach?
Yes, Coach. Something about future recruiting. Now that you have Kevin Ollie as the heir apparent to Chris Smith at point guard, I wonder if you noted a potential replacement for Kevin Ollie, who's a sophomore at Cheshire High School. The only problem is he may be the best baseball player in the state, and I don't know if you want to go through that again. And if you would ask Scott if he remembers being stuffed by the little Odell girl next door when he was growing up.
I would certainly go through any time again to get a Scott Burrell. You can trust me on that one. The funny thing is that Kevin Ollie, Chris Smith has not graduated yet. Kevin Ollie has not played a collegiate game yet, and we're talking about a backup or replacement for Kevin Ollie, which may tell you about recruiting, because I think that's really the state we're in, where we've got to be ahead of the game and be proactive as we try to be. But I think that question is very indicative of what people and the way we have to think in many, many ways. Before actually, as I said, we've played a game, they're talking about a freshman who hasn't played a game yet. We are even really to try to recruit him. And but if he's that good and he can rival Scott Burrell, we'll certainly be down in Cheshire to take a look at him.
Okay, folks, in our live audience here in the studio, and you folks at home who called in, thank you very much for your calls and your questions. We will be back to wrap things up on Husky Mania, a whole new ball game, right after this timeout. Welcome you back to Husky Mania. It's a whole new ball game. We have just a couple of minutes left. Jim, first of all, let's talk briefly about the Big East race. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know how much you coaches know. You play golf in, what is it, May, and you vote. I mean, last year they voted you guys #1. Never mind the fact that Nadav Hennefeld and Tate George weren't back. But they have the new kids on the block, sort of, so to speak, at the top this year with St. John's and Seton Hall and UConn, and the Syracuse and Georgetowns are a bit lower. How do you look at the race this year?
Yeah, the funny thing is I really don't see anybody a bit lower. As I said before, I think Boston College is going to make a move into the real competitive aspect where they can probably beat most any team in the league, and I think it's a dangerous thing. We've gone to a league that maybe had 6, 7 very good teams to a league that has at least 8 or 9 very good teams, and I think that there isn't much separation, quite frankly, between Pittsburgh and Seton Hall, yet we're picking Seton Hall first or second along with St. John's. I really think it's so competitive that it'd be virtually impossible to pick the placement. I think that St. John's and Seton Hall on paper seem to have the best teams with the most experience, but I would not really fathom a guess at who is the best team.
We mentioned before about the freshmen, how your basketball team figures to be better in February than in November because you have so many new faces you're trying to integrate in the lineup. Yet you have a couple of real danger games on the non-conference portion of the schedule this year, some new teams that you don't ordinarily play. We spoke about Texas, and the other one is Illinois, at Illinois on either January 4th or January 5th, and that is a dangerous game.
That's a very dangerous game, but like the Texas game, I think what it gives is national exposure. One of the reasons we have this supposedly great freshman class, or at least very heralded freshman class, I think very honestly is because of TV, and I think a lot of exposure that we've received. ESPN and CBS has allowed us to get those kids and allowed us to come into their homes, and we've been able to recruit them. We're not exactly a stranger, so I think that those games are good for us. They're very difficult for us, but you know, we think that these guys are up to the challenge.
If opening night were tomorrow night, who would you start?
Well, the three of them here, I have to say that because I started back with them. No, but you know, Chris Smith, Scott Burrell, Torino, Rod, and who I forgot probably.
Danielle
Marshall might get
Who'll be the other
nod,
forward?
I think. I don't like to say freshman. I have a tough time with saying a freshman's going to start the first game of this year. But I would say that would be the starting team. And then after that, you know, Kevin and Brian and Danny. I mean, those are the three guys right now who have emerged as our top 8.
And quickly, what would you consider a successful season?
To be the best we can be. And I really honestly mean it. I think every year we come in to be that. And, you know, if we said a couple years ago the best we could do is 20, won 31, we didn't overachieve. We were just a great basketball team. If we said last year we had to win 21 and we only won 20, did we underachieve? No, we didn't. We went to the final 16. So if we can be the best we can be, if we can develop all the way through the year and by March be one heck of a basketball team, I'll be a very happy guy.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck this season. Looking forward to working with you on the Jim Calhoun Show starting in January, and of course Calhoun's Corner in the 6 o'clock news every Friday.
Thanks, Bob. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, Jim Calhoun and his UConn Huskies, and thank you for joining us tonight. And a reminder, Channel 8 will be your spot on the dial for Husky Hoops. Our first game will be January 2nd against the University of Miami. For all of us here at Channel 8, this is Bob Picozzi saying thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you throughout the 1991-92 basketball season.